The Citroen Conservatoire is located northeast of Paris and houses the official Citroen Heritage Collection. Despite being open over 20 years, it was invite only, but over the last couple of years has been freely open to the public. It costs €11 each to get in and is open Tuesday to Saturday. So the museum covers the whole history of Citroen, so let's start at the beginning. Citroen was created in 1919 by André Citroen. The museum houses a replica of André's office and Citroen's first car, the Type A. They were subsequently followed up with an array of pre-war vehicles such as this three-seater and the Rosalie, and surprisingly to me, a number of vehicles sporting the modern-day Citroen nomenclature, such as C4 and C6. The success of this original C4 made Citroen the biggest European car manufacturer at the time. Citroen followed those models up with a number of lovely pre-war models until we get to the rather well-known and innovative Traction Avant, which was one of the first front-wheel drive models out there, using a transaxle gearbox which sat in front of the engine, and despite those classic looks was actually a rather advanced monocoque chassis. The cost of developing the Traction Avant bankrupted the company and it was bought out by Michelin. A year later, André Citroen sadly died. Now we get to World War II and the impact it had on Citroen, and leads us to three very fascinating cars in the museum. Through the 30s, Citroen was working on something completely new, known at the time as the TPV, a simple car for the masses with the innovative front-wheel drive configuration of the Traction Avant, and a novel suspension setup famously designed to allow a basket of eggs to be transported over a ploughed field and to take 4 people and 50 kilos in comfort at 50 kph. That car, of course, later became the De Cheveux, or 2CV. Now, Citroen produced many prototypes of the TPV, but during the Nazi occupation it destroyed many, apparently over 200, and hid a couple, while unknowingly was that 3 prototypes were also stashed away in the roof of a building at a Citroen test facility. It wasn't until 1995 that they were discovered, so they were very well hidden indeed. You really can see how different yet advanced this car would have been for the late 30s and early 40s. These early prototypes experimented with water cooling and even one headlight, and had no boot lid and very basic styling, but was still very novel, demonstrating the latest technologies of the time. Citroen was finally able to sell the TCB, albeit notably updated from 1948. It featured an air-cooled flat-2 engine with inboard front brakes, that super clever hydraulic ram-style suspension, rear hinge front doors and removable seats that could be used for picnics. The early car had a canvas roof that also stretched down the back of the car like the TPV prototypes. The 2CV stayed in production until the late 80s and was updated many times during that period, which can be seen walking down the 2CV aisle in the museum. There were also many versions like the twin-engine four-wheel drive Sahara and the Fourgonette van, or other 2CV drive models like the Diane, the Saloon and Estate Ami, the Mahari and the African Market FAF, which is based on the 2CV. They even have one of the vehicles used in the James Bond film, For Your Eyes Only. Just 7 short years after the launch of the TCV, Citroen dropped the DS on the world. Something completely different, something luxurious, stylish, cutting edge and truly innovative. This thing made waves in the 50s. The collection holds various Series 1, Series 2 and Series 3 versions, including the Estate Safari and the ID entry-level versions. The DS offered various technologies, such as the famous oleo-pneumatic self-levelling suspension, with its variable ride height and the ability to drive on 3 wheels, all-round disc brakes, power steering, and for late Series 3 cars, cornering headlights, a feature my C4 VTS has, and a lovely nod back to the Citroen DS. Many years later, Citroen decided it had too much money and bought always cash-strapped Maserati. Hard to imagine them doing that nowadays. The fruit of this relationship was that Maserati would design and develop a new V6 engine to be dropped into Citroen's next showstopper, the SM Luxury Coupe. Around the same time the SM launched, the thoroughly modern GS came out, a wonderfully styled car with the famed suspension and air-cooled engines. Citroen would also experiment with rotary engines at this time, in collaboration with NSU, with the M35 experimental prototypes, but also the GS Birotor, which was actually sold to members of the public, but it was a big fail. Citroen ended up trying to buy back all of the GS Birotors, so they didn't need to support repairs and spares in market. Following the GS, Citroen was at it again, developing another quirky, stylish and innovative model, the CX, one of my all-time favourite Citroens. The CX would be the last Citroen developed before the merger with Peugeot. All that cash splashing on fancy engines, funky interiors and on supercar manufacturers came at a cost, and Citroen was a bit low on funds and was at risk during the 70s, of which the French government sorted out a merger with Peugeot, selling Michelin's stake and selling it to Peugeot. Peugeot would then take control, where both Citroens and Peugeots would start sharing engines and technologies. The Visa, LN and BX were some of the first models launched through collaboration with Peugeot. That didn't mean Citroen had no freedom. Let's not forget that during this early era, Citroen kept its legendary suspension setup and still messed around with quirky ergonomics, such as with the BX, but with access to Peugeot engines. So they could start giving us some higher performance cars such as the BX 16 valve, the Visa GTI and the CX Turbo and GTI models. What was astonishing to see here was the 4TC, a road-going homologation version of their Group B rally car. That's right, Citroen had a Group B rally car based on the Citroen BX. And you can find that car in the collection as well. Through the late 80s and 90s, Citroen started to rein in the quirkiness and character. The AX, ZX and Xantia were good cars but a lot tamer. The diesel versions were incredibly popular, the ZX 16 valve was very powerful for the time, and the Xantia did come with the super agile and clever Activa version with its active suspension. Citroen clearly couldn't keep all the crazy bottled up, because despite the more sedate production cars, the concept cars shown at motor shows were wild, such as the Camin with its pyramid shape, the Xantia, an AX-based sports car, and the Activa, which was a luxury coupe type car, which previewed the technology that went into the Xantia Activa. Some of those concepts did preview new very successful Citroens, however, such as the Xane with its one door on one side and two on the other, but that car previewed the Citroen Zara Picasso compact MPV, which was a huge success story for Citroen. And the Berlingo Coupe de Plage concept, which gave a preview of the Berlingo, itself a more car-like van designed for passengers, which happened to be the first car ever tested on the newly launched Clarkson era of Top Gear. The concepts got even madder, but did preview future models. The C3 Air previewed a convertible version of the C3, which was closely carried into the production Pluriel. The C Air Dream previewed the shape of the C4 Coupe. The C4 Air Lounge MPV concept influenced the C4 Grand Picasso. The Citroen DS5 of 2011 looks very similar to the C Sport Lounge concept of 2005. And the Citroen C6 Lignage was carried straight into production as the C6, with minor changes. Other amazing concepts unfortunately weren't taken into production, like the stunning convertible C5 Airscape, the C Buggy, the C Airplane, and the wicked looking Tubic van and Revolt hatchback. The C Cactus did inspire the super frugal and oh-so Citroen C4 Cactus, however. DS Automobiles is a spin-off of Citroen and does get some coverage in the museum with a wide range of DS models, including some China-only ones such as the DS6 and DS4 hatchback. The DS Divine concept was also present, which is an incredible looking thing. A DS7 is also the latest presidential vehicle, alongside various other historical Citroens, of which the exact vehicles can be found in the museum. I haven't of course covered Citroen's famous motorsport Lignage yet. Now most people are familiar with the huge success Citroen had in rallying with the Zara C4, DS3 and C3, but Citroen also participated in the Dakar Rally with wild cars linked to the ZX, the Group B BX rally car I mentioned earlier, and various other motorsport versions of the Saxo and the DS and other Citroens. For the DS and the SM, the novel suspension setup made it surprisingly capable and robust on rough surfaces, which was great for rallying of course. And hidden in plain sight was this other rally Citroen SM, which seemed to have a cut-off rear end. I do not know much about this car, so if you do, please comment. This V6 engine C4 VTS prototype, which features the same 210 horsepower V6 engine as per my Renault Aventine, but was also used in Citroens at the time, including the C5. Stashed away at the back is a helicopter, and you might be wondering what the heck Citroen has got to do with it. Well, actually, it was Citroen that produced this RE2 prototype, as I understand looking to branch out into other modes of transport during the 1970s. Only one working prototype was produced, and this is it. And to finish, here is one of the latest concepts from Citroen, celebrating the 100-year anniversary of Citroen. This car is called the 1919 and previews some styling and technology themes Citroen may look to for future models, but with a traditional outlandish concept carness. So there is a quick overview of the Citroen collection. There are far more cars that I've mentioned that you can hopefully see glances of in the background, but I highly recommend checking it out yourself. One thing I did find interesting is that the workshop here is open to the public, so you can take your car to be worked on by proper Citroen mechanics, the same ones responsible for looking after the collection and the cars used in media.